Right, it looks like we are live. Welcome once again, Jeff.
Welcome, Erik.
Thanks. I've been enjoying these Steelman conversations where we try to give the best version of arguments that are maybe a little bit non-obvious or I don't know, when organizations get into trouble trying to figure out what to do. I like having these conversations and trying to figure out all the pros and cons.
I appreciate that, and I always enjoy debating with you. And more importantly, I think exploring some of these topics is enjoyable and meaningful. Hopefully, other people are enjoying them half as much as we are.
I enjoy when you debate me too because it gives me the sense of winning after every time we talk.
Uh, oh, that's funny. That's funny. I didn't know you had a sense of humor.
That was a real life joke. Okay. Um, the thing I want to talk about today is a situation we've been in multiple times in multiple different contexts. So I think context is going to be really important here. But the thing I want to talk about is what comes first, sales or product?
Sales. I
Sales
don't
or
understand the conversation. Sales.
product? Right. So Jeff, you're a sales guy. You might think that somebody from your background would be on one far end of the spectrum, thinking that sales and business development and finding early customers and talking to your market and all of these types of things must come before we decide what to build. Me as a product guy, you might think I'm on the other end of the spectrum, saying, well, we have to know what the product is before we try to sell it. Otherwise, we're just going to generate noise, and it's not going to be helpful.
It's funny. I think actually a lot of people that sit in our seats take the opposite side so we don't have any accountability. In fact, Erik, I'm going to build out my sales team. I am going to do all the operational stuff. I'm going to hold a lot of meetings, maybe even do some market research. But until you have a fully fledged product, I'm not going to sell it. Therefore, I don't have any quota.
Oof, wow. Yeah, so let's see here. What's actually going on in these situations where we're having a debate about whether we focus entirely on sales or entirely on product? Let's start with the case of like a brand new company or a brand new product, kind of the startup case, when we truly don't have much established. Where do we start? Sales or product?
Both.
Both. Well, that's always going to be our answer, right?
I
But you make the case that at a brand new startup, make the case for why we might want to start with sales and business development first, and I'll try to make the case
Yeah,
for why we want to start with product first.
and let's make sure we give a definition of sales, and I mean all things sales and marketing. I mean all things go to market.
Yep.
So the go to market side of this says that while you're smart, while our product team is smart, while the guy that invented the idea or the girl that came up with the
Whatever the
solution,
product is, yeah.
whatever that is, let's say they're smart. And let's say she has just really killed it. She's been in the industry for decades. She knows exactly what the market needs. And well, therefore we don't need market research. And that's just generally not true. That there is no genius, there is no one person that knows all of the solutions. He's going to have some gaps, he's going to have some flaws in his theory, his thinking, and the sooner that you bring in real live down to earth ideal client profiles, the better your solution is going to be for the market.
Yeah. So one
And
thing we hear all the time is hey, look, I know that this is a good idea. I know,
yep.
right? And
And
there's no we're asked to believe that without a lot of supporting evidence. We're asked to take it on faith that this is going to be a good product, a good idea, a successful business, and therefore we can we can peg our efforts either all on the sales side or all on the product side. But it's starting from this stance of like I know best and we don't need any other inputs.
and there you go. It's the entrepreneur that has led the way that says absolutely says this is the solution. We've just got to find smarter prospects when we have the solution. Therefore, go build the product.
Yeah.
And what I would tell you is the more we accelerate, the more we engage with the markets, the more we start. And you want to know the argument for fully going sales or marketing or go to market first. And the answer is quite simply in the realm of startup, we don't have an established brand, we don't have an established market share. We don't have an established client base. The answer is without those things, you can't answer the pressing questions of who are we solving it for, what are we going to solve, and how are we going to solve it.
Yeah.
You
This
can't
is
answer
also,
those questions in a vacuum.
that's right. This is ripe with survivorship bias too, because like the companies we tend to talk about, the Tesla or the Amazon or whatever, like the companies that tend to make headlines are these companies with charismatic, I am right, my product is right leaders, or that's the way we talk about it. No, nobody, if you asked any of these people, they would say, no, I was wrong for a lot of years before I was right. And they
No,
were learning and iterating.
yeah, and I want to talk about that. Even if the founder entrepreneur sits there and says, see, I was right, what happened behind them or in support of them was 1,000 small batch experiments.
Yes.
And the startups, the founders that are willing to accept and willing to invest in 1,000 small batch experiments are the ones that end up looking like a genius because, see, I was right all along.
That's right.
And the theory, and I'll use Amazon as an example. Amazon is built on 1,000 small batch experiments a day. And the fact that Amazon is as dominant as they are is because they can run more experiments than other people.
Yes.
And to me, that
said
that is
another way, they're learning faster than other people. They're not saying we have it right, just go build it. They're learning faster than others. Yep.
And the only sustainable competitive advantage there is left is the ability to learn faster than everybody else.
Yep.
And the fastest way to learn faster than everybody else is get really good at experiments.
Yeah.
And get really good at hypothesis testing. Get really good at those things. And so I the answer to me is why sales and marketing and go to market should come first and get your investment, get a large chunk of that investment. Is the faster you do those things, the faster you have an engaged audience, whether it's your first engaged person, whether it's your 10th, whether it's your 100th, whether it's your 1,000th raving fan, because of the way you've engaged with them, is the faster you're going to learn and take market share. And those raving fans are going to be the best marketing and sales, as well as the best product experts you have.
Sure. So what I hear you saying here is your argument for starting with sales and marketing in a startup environment it has less to do with closing sales and revenue and more to do with connecting to potential customers and learning about what's actually going on for them.
Yes, and I'm going to turn this around on you and tell me ask you why I'm wrong in a second.
Yeah.
So as I elaborate here, you start thinking of your answer because it's going to be wrong and I'm going to win. And I want you to be prepared for that. But think of it as revenue is in a startup world, the reason you're getting revenue is to invest. But revenue and cash flow aren't the only potential energy that you're creating. The volume of information that you're collecting by getting to the markets, the volume of potential energy and having and getting a loyal fan base is potential energy, as well as we're now building out a skill set of a team that is able to quickly go to market, quickly take ideas to market, quickly engage with the market, quickly get an audience to engage with you. All of those muscles are vital to build up as fast as possible. So there's the potential energy of your team. There's the potential energy of the market itself with raving fans. And then there's the actual revenue or cash that you bring in. All three of those have, inherent value to your company, and how you leverage them and how fast you build them is the key. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, you are wrong, obviously. So here's the kind of the cons of starting with the sales approach instead of a product approach. What typically happens in product early on is we are inundated with unknowns that we're trying to figure out. And I don't think it's extremely helpful to increase the amount of information we have early on. In generally speaking, there's so many things we have to learn about and do in any given day or week of a new product and new product development. We don't need a team of salespeople telling us 50 other things that are happening. I think that work can be done by product owners and designers and UX professionals, and like maybe a couple product people that may look more like marketing or sales folks, but we can do that work without having a team of salespeople on board and talking to customers early on.
See, you put a bunch of words in my mouth I didn't use.
Like what?
I didn't say team, other than when you have a team, you want to have those muscles. This can be the work of one or two salespeople or one or two marketing people. And if you don't think you should have those, tell me the last time product owners have done a great job of getting in front of the audience of these large scale enterprise companies and getting the right ideal client profile.
Well, that's interesting. Well, product owners I know do a pretty good job of that, but I know that's not universal. But the way that you're saying this, like, hey, let's have one or two sales and marketing folks, not 50, but one or two or 10, like whatever the right number is, but it's smaller than we think. Let's have them start helping connect this organization to its customers in whatever way is most helpful to serve early product development. Then I'm all on board. Right. But this is you and I kind of meeting in the middle here with what we usually do at companies that we're working with, right? We need a tight coupling between sales and marketing and product, especially early on.
Yeah, we're going to get away from the Steelman argument pretty quickly here, because I think it's hard to justify in a growing company one or the other. It's just hard, and it's the edge case is that's the right case. If you have, let's just reference one of those edge cases. If you, quote unquote, are in stealth, you have a founder that is a true market savant, you have a known solution to the market, and you don't want to release it for a myriad of reasons, such as people stealing the IP, it's 0 to 100, or there's a long, you used to refer to it as the long tentpole problem to solve before you can solve some of the other problems.
Yeah.
And sometimes in those cases, you want to be stealth and go to work on a known problem that's in the market.
Sure. As soon as you say that you have some sort of like savant founder, though, like I don't believe it mostly, especially if it's a self-declared, I'm an expert. But more than that, you're going to find that out right away, right? If you truly have the next $1 billion idea, you can test that really easily. And if it works and people are globbing out after it, then you don't have this problem. You don't have to decide whether to invest in sales and marketing. You just go raise a bunch of money and build the thing, right? You've hit a slam dunk. Congratulations. Go execute. That's
easy. And let's be clear. I haven't ever been a part of one of those, and I've never seen a case study of one of those.
Sure. It probably happens from time to time, or like, a company launches a product that just hits the nail on the head. We can throw out some of what we talk about as far as discovery. If we're really sure, if we have all of the signals and all of the information that this is going to be a successful product, then we can flip into execution mode pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly right. You don't have these concerns. So let's remove those edge cases, and let's spend, I know our goal was to keep this shorter.
Yeah, forget about it.
So let's spend time about how to actually iterate on these and take it from a company, whether it's a new company or new product. That blend of sales and marketing with product, those people should be connected at the hip. And product should be, and you mentioned this, we don't need all the information. We need the right information at the right time.
Yes.
And so product's job, if you will, is to work with sales to identify the right questions that we need to go to the market and ask.
And that's really key, right? Because my big concern as a product person is getting inundated with noise or unhelpful information. We're not looking for volumes of information. And I think what my fear is that a new sales team not connected to product is going to ask all sorts of questions and give all sorts of feedback that just isn't helpful, or it's not hitting the bullseye, right? We're maybe at the fringes of different things. And early on in product development, we have to maintain a strict focus on only things that are in the bullseye.
Yeah, and let's talk about one other edge case where you don't have to worry about this. If you do not have a cash resource problem, you don't have to worry about this. Hire 10 teams, go after all 10 ideas.
Sure.
However, if you do have a resource cash limitation where you can't hire any team in the volume of team you want, you do have to be hyper focused. And here's that trade-off, and you and I have had this conversation countless times, is okay, let's come up with 1, 2, 3 problems and case studies that we're going to go out and test to make sure we can sell. If so, we have product is now going and working on the issues and why those problems haven't been solved, or the question marks, the assumptions, and validating the assumptions that the product can be developed. And marketing, sales, go-to-market team is going out and pulling in a few key ideal client profiles to engage with us in the best way to solve those. Yeah. And the key thing there is we have 1, 2, 3 questions on both product and sales. And I'm going to let you talk about the product side of this, but generically on sales, what I'm looking for marketing and sales is, are we able to engage with this audience? Do we have a compelling message? And are they going to be willing to pay to solve that problem in a high enough fashion that it makes sense to invest in solving it?
Yeah. And not in a company, that third question is the only one that I really care about from a high level product viewpoint.
Yeah, from a high level product.
A ton of details and features and small problems we're going to work through and get a lot of kind of low level feedback but from a strategy point of view, it's really that third question. How much would you pay to solve this problem that you're having? And if our product did X, does that solve it? That's what I want to know.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when we talk these startup companies, if the entrepreneur / founder doesn't have the relationships that can bring in that ideal client profile to say that's a yellow flag for me. That's a question mark. If you think you should be solving these problems for these people, why haven't you already had the conversations with these people? Why don't we have a few relationships to bring in? Mm-hmm. And you and I have both experienced that. Now, yes. The other case that I want to bring up is something that you and I have experienced over and over again. Let's take this 5, 10, 5, 15, maybe even a $5 to $20 million company that is going through an evolution or a transition, if you will, from a service-based to a tech-based, or they have a new innovation in the marketplace that they're trying to release. They have a sales team that's relationship-based. They have relationships. They have a product team who's really good at, keeping the one that we always heard was keeping the trains running on time. Where are we investing first there?
That's interesting. So in this situation, it looks like there's a new market opportunity with an established sales team that's currently working on an old opportunity. It sounds like we don't need any more investment in sales team members or something like that. It sounds like we can kind of leverage what we have and maybe put most of our resources into product development, since we're starting fresh, we're starting new. This is a new product.
Let me ask you this. Are the skills of a developer who takes a current system and keeps it operational and does iterative improvements the same as a developer that looks at a blank page and develops something? That's
a really tough question. But in general, I think it's fair to say that those are two very different, not only skill sets, but desires, that you find different people wanting to work in different places like that. So,
yeah. And so when we say we already have a sales and marketing team, I would argue it's the same issue.
Hey, wow, you just blew my mind, right? Like I was just thinking, like, a salesperson is a salesperson, just like a coder is a coder. They're all fungible, right? And go.
And there's where, when we start talking about transitioning these companies to a new business model, to a new product / service, the company has the leadership team, or all the way down the line, somebody had a new idea and wants to take it to market. Anytime you're going to market, you have a group of new skills that needs to be developed. And you take people that had established relationships, and now I have to take that relationship and transition it to somebody else in their enterprise. That's a skill. Or I need to take that relationship and start talking about something we haven't talked about before. I need to take that relationship and mold it into them buying in a different way. Mm. And all of those skills are different from a marketing and a sales perspective, as well as, an operations perspective, as well as a development perspective. And so the question becomes is, how do we make that transition, and how do we move over?
Yeah.
And to me, that question becomes really interesting of who goes first there. And sometimes you do need to make the trade-off of we only have so much funds to invest in this, so we have to have one or the other.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate answer, and I know LinkedIn this isn't gonna become clickbaity, but the unfortunate answer is it depends on your team, it depends on the market. So I'm gonna ask you this: in what case do we hire the sales team first, Erik?
Um, in what case do we hire the sales team first? I think maybe this is a little recency bias from our last venture together, but one case is if the market that you're playing in has incredibly long sales cycles because of whatever. If we know that it's going to take a year to close a deal because you're closing a 8-figure deal that requires 18 lawyers and a procurement department and annual budgeting and things like that, you need to start now, right? And you have to start those conversations in the mode of more information gathering, less closing sales early on. But you have to start these conversations and build relationships early on so that we get a year or two to develop a product that can then be closed rather quickly. We have to start now or we're going to be years behind, right? So that's and this is a product guy trying to advocate for hiring more salespeople, which you don't hear very much. But that's one reason to really focus on sales and marketing early is if there's a long sales cycle and there's nothing we can do about it.
And my turn. I'm going to take the product side.
Okay.
And this is one that also has some experience for us. Let's say we have a product team that is at capacity, just keeping the current product up to date and working and functional. And we have those contracts. If we're expecting that team to do that and develop a new product or service, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We're in trouble because that trade-off is going to be different, depends on who walks in the room that day.
And at the end of the day, for most companies, it's going to be really hard to say no to keeping the lights on and say yes to some big new opportunity. So that new product is almost always naturally going to take a backseat to existing customers and existing products, which is sad. That's not what we want, right? That's not the strategy we're after. We've just said that there's this new market opportunity and we want to pounce on it. We're going to build a product and a sales team. And we're going to go after it. And then every day we end up making these decisions to not do that.
And this gets us, and I think you and I are going to be on the same page here. And I'm going to kind of give a summary, knowing we're trying to keep it to a short time here. The answer of whether it's sales or product, and by sales, again, we mean everything that's go to market, and by product, we mean everything that's operationalize what we're selling or develop what we're selling, I should say. The trade-off there is kind of a constant give and take, and they need to be kind of within range of each other. There's certain information that we need to pull in, and there's certain things we need to develop and then take back to the market. There's certain potential energy that we have to develop in the market to allow it to transition over and have that product be developed, be funded, and be proven. Yeah. And that constant back and forth means a couple things. One, you need a really good working environment and a shared management style between those two departments. And if one side's working Agile Scrum and the other side's working old school sales, and I'm going to use the word waterfall because it's no different, that's a good term for sales where, hey, we're going to have quarterly quotas and we're going to have your numbers. And by the way, we're going to manage our activities. That doesn't allow for that back and forth. You need to be on the same management philosophy because if we're going to tie everyone by the hip, you need those supporting items. And as one grows, the other one comes back.
There we go. So let's close out with this question because one of the things, I'm not sure if you and I have ever talked about this, but one of the hypotheses I have is in new product development, whether it's a new company or a new product within a big existing company, for launching a new product, it is always better. I'm making this extreme statement to kind of provoke you. It's always better to have a smaller, more cross-functional team than trying to find the best of everything. So to give you an example, I believe that you and I, just you and I, and a team of product development professionals and sales professionals could launch a new company or a new product together. We've done it before, multiple times. You know what a lot of companies do though, is not only do they hire Jeff, the sales expert, and Erik, the product development person, they also hire somebody else to run marketing and somebody else to run HR and somebody else to run QA and somebody else to run, they hire a whole management team of people to launch a new product. And I always have felt that kind of slows everything down right off the bat. And the reason is what we're hitting on here. It's that early product development requires such a tight coupling between all of these things that it's really hard to do if you have a different functional VP or whatever for every part of the process.
What is that old saying? A horse built by a committee is a camel? I don't know. I don't remember the saying. But the idea that it's the theory of constraints approach to product launch, which means we are going to hire directly for the need that is next, the bottleneck that is next.
Yes.
And what you and I have seen of these companies that go get investments and they now have a long runway, they immediately take the theory of excess, which means we have to build up all of the potential energy now. And not only is that silly, but it greatly increases the risk to any given startup, because what we don't know is what kills all of these startups.
Yeah.
And there's invariably a surprise that's hiding around the corner in all of these startups or all of these product launches and all of the next scale. And what unfortunately management methods have come down to has been read the book. This is how everybody is scaled, so therefore we have to scale this way. And the way that LinkedIn scaled is they hired all these executives. These executives bared down. They worked 70 hours a week and got there. Well, guess what? That's not realistic for everybody. That's not the best path for everybody. In fact, that model is the path for one type of company. And of course, that one company is going to preach and scream about it because they get to sell books. The model that is much more appropriate is exactly what you just talked about. Take and build the smallest team to solve the problem in front of you. And almost invariably, the problem in front of you is how do you get the minimum viable product in front of the minimum viable client base so you can learn what comes next. That's a good place to... Well, I was going to come up with an awesome quote. Now nobody's going to hear it.
That's a good place to leave it, actually. What you just said is spot on. You want to summarize that again, and then you can add your awesome quote.
No, I forgot it now. It's gone. But it's the minimum viable product in front of the minimum viable audience, and do that repeatedly.
Yeah, and I hate those terms, and you know that. but in what you're trying to say is the best, most economically efficient model of new product development is almost always going to be the smallest, most collaborative, most cohesive, most cross-functional team of people acting as one unit. Not a huge gulf between sales and product. We need them tied at the hip, but the smallest cross-functional team possible, acting as one unit to learn about what problems people will pay to solve in your domain.
Yeah, and I'll give one metaphor. It's the car. Nobody buys a car because it has the best transmission. You buy the car because it fits your needs. And if you want the car that goes the fastest, it rarely has the best tires, the best transmission, and the best engine. It's the combination of those things that allow it to be the fastest car.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the startup. The companies that do this well take the smallest possible step in the fastest possible way. And they do that repeatedly. And the companies that fail,
a lot of them don't work, right? A lot of those small steps fail, and it doesn't matter because we're immediately going on to the next one. We expect it. Not everything has to work. Not every deadline has to be met. Not every feature has to be a blockbuster. We expect that because we don't have crystal balls and we can't tell the future. But we're going to learn about our product and our market and our customers as quickly as possible.
And I think there is the summary, and we started off there.
There we go.
The startups that learn the fastest grow the fastest. And it's
great. Maybe
how fast can I learn?
Maybe next time let's Steelman the opposite of that. Let's make an argument for why you might want to go stealth for years and then have one big product launch and how you might mitigate all those risks. as your in stealth mode. How about that?
You can do that. I'll sit there and start working.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the conversation, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.